Man, that's what makes America so great. I mean, you're free to like chocolate. Come on, how many chocolate lovers? Chocolate lovers? Yeah, a lot. How many non-chocolate lovers? Okay, one. All right, good. Good deal. Hey, don't laugh. He's free to not like chocolate. All right, here, like sushi. How many of you like sushi? Yeah, that's nasty. How many of you don't like sushi? Yes, I'm with you. You're right and they're wrong. Let's just say it like that. They have the right to be ignorant and wrong. That's okay. That's good. Hey, I didn't really call you ignorant from the stage. That's not what I meant. But you look at that and you're like, man, like vacations. How many of you are beach vacation people? Yeah, okay. Okay. How many of you are no get me to cooler weather mountain vacation people? Yes. Yes, my armpits sweat way too much, man, for me to always be going to the beach but that's kind of where we are. Like we like different things. We like different music. We like different food. I mean, it's just, you get in a room together and our differences are what makes us unique, right? So we look at people and we see different, but what you really misunderstand from there, I think is the right word, is it doesn't make them necessarily different. It just makes them unique. So you like sushi. That's okay. You're unique. That's weird. That's weird. So it's kind of one of those things. So when we look at the topics that we're on the next couple of weeks, you have a right to think and have an opinion about whatever you want to think. But what I want to show you for the next couple of weeks is how do we view that through the filter of the gospel? Because if you are a follower of Jesus and if you've given your life to him, then we can't react to situations that happen the way that we want to react to situations that happen. You with me so far? Like we have to react in the way that Jesus would react. Because when we accepted him, he came in and made us a brand new person. He made us more like him. And the object of that growth is to grow and grow and grow to become more like him, to handle situations, not how you would handle situations, but how he would handle situations. But we have all different kinds of things, but we have a couple of similarities, right? I think all of us have a few things in common. Wouldn't you say that we all have a few things in common? Like we're all wearing clothes? You're grateful for that, whether or not you think you are or not. You're grateful for that right there. But we have a couple of things that we have in common, and what we have in common kind of unites us. So we have a hard time looking at differences sometimes because it kind of divides us, but what we have in common unites us in that. So a couple of things that I think all of us would say that has affected our life one way or another. I'm going to give you a couple of dates. You ready? Right here. July 4th, 1776. Wouldn't you say that that's a big date? Right? It's the day we came America. Right? Don't you love that? Right? I love that. And especially in the South with a bunch of rednecks, man, we celebrated this last weekend. Right? So large amounts of alcohol and explosives. That's how rednecks do it right there. I don't know how we mix the two together, but that's how we tend to celebrate the 4th of July. So don't do that. You can get really hurt with that if you do that. But it's a date that we would all say, yes, that's how that date has affected us. Here's the next one right here, March 14th, 1912. It's the day the Oreo cookie was made. Come on, man, some Oreos. I love an Oreo cookie, right? But you know what's better than an Oreo cookie? 2 Oreo cookies, right? 2 of them. I'm telling you, you could unite the world. If you had enough milk and enough cookies, I'm pretty sure nobody would have a problem with anybody. You'd just have a party eating some Oreo cookies. Wouldn't you say that? Come on, how many Oreo cookie lovers? Yeah, like no hands were down on that. That's cool. Here's the next one right here, July 13th, 1937. Let's just take a moment of silence for this. Like I'm telling you, that's awesome. And then whoever came up with the idea of like slicing it in half and putting a piece of meat and cheese in the middle of it and making the donut a bun, oh my goodness. You should try that. A lot of you are like, you're different. I'm unique, okay? That's fine. You can like what you can like. I can like what I can like. But listen, this drives people crazy. Man, going to Dothan to the Krispy Kreme right there, like I've seen people on the far left lane, like risk life and limb to get into the Krispy Kreme parking lot when the hot now sign is on. Like I've seen that. It's like I don't care. Hot now, I'm getting some. Like I'm going after that. Here's the next date right here, July 12th, 2015. And you're like, wait, what? That's today. That's today. Yeah, that's today. That's today, because here's my prayer, is that today that there will be a group of people that would unite around one name, the name of Jesus, and we would get to a place that we go, you know what, let's figure out how to handle it, how He would handle it. And we would grow into the people that He would want us to be and that He's called us to be, and that no matter what happens in our life and no matter what situation we get in where we're thinking, man, I don't know what I believe, we're always taking it back to what would Jesus do, right? Because I think if we have a group of people that would face every life decision in this way, to go, you know what, how would Jesus handle it? How would Jesus handle it? I promise you, man, that group of people will make a difference in the world, right? And especially today when we're going in that topic about racism and hate and where that comes from and how to do that, man, we need unity more right now than we've ever needed it before. We need unity now more than we've ever needed it before, right? God has not called us to be a people that divides, but a people that bridges the gap between hate and relationships and pain and struggle. We need that now more than we've ever needed it before. So I know as we go in and we start talking about this a little bit, I know that we've all grown up in different cultures, we've all grown up in different families, and we all have different backgrounds. So maybe your family taught you to love and respect people no matter what their skin color was. Maybe that's you, man. I hope that was you. That was me. That was my family. That was my upbringing, man. I thank my mom and dad for that. They did a huge deal for that. But maybe some of you didn't grow up in that home like that. Maybe you grew up in a home that now when you look back, it was kind of racist, and they said hateful comments to people, and it was just so much drama in the life of those people. So I know that we all have grown up in different backgrounds, but when we look at this in just a second, man, we're going straight to the Bible and we're going, Jesus, what would you do? What would you do? And we're going to rally around the name of Jesus and act and do in our society and on Facebook and at work and to our friends the way that Jesus would treat them, right? Because we said last week we only have to do two things as a church, right? As a group of people, we only have to do two things, and that's love and love. That's it. You love God and love people, there's no hate in there, right? There's no hate in there. So let's answer the question. Here's the question right here. Where does racism and hate start? Where does it start? Where does it start? Where does it start in your life? And last week we touched on kind of why you believe some of the things you believe, right? And we said that for the most part, some of the things that we believe, we don't really believe them because we believe them, but we believe them because of people that we trust and love. We believe them because they believe them, right? So some of that stuff has been passed down to us, and that's why we have the beliefs that we believe. Like ice cream. How many of you like ice cream? Yeah, you love ice cream. You know why you love ice cream? Is because somebody at some point that loved ice cream thought it'd be good to share the belief that ice cream was fantastic. Right? So you said, yes, I'm going to take that, and you saw that it was fantastic, and you just rolled with it. But it all started with somebody. Right? How many of you like rutabagas? Yeah, not as much. Man, you know we're in the South when a rutabaga is a sermon illustration. Like you know that you are in the South. Come on, welcome to South Alabama. But I don't like rutabagas. I've never had rutabagas. And you're like, well, how can you not? I just don't like them. You know why I don't like them? Because my dad doesn't like them. My mom likes them, but I grew up hearing how nasty they were and how it was disgusting and you shouldn't eat them. And the belief that he had was passed down to me, and now I believe that rutabagas are nasty, and I'll tell you to your face, if you eat them, they're gross. But I've never had a rutabaga. Right? So you see what I'm saying? It's passed down from one generation to the other, and racism and hate is the same way. Racism and hate is passed down from one generation to another. So, man, when we were student pastors at Haynesville, Louisiana, when we were student pastors there, I'm telling you, it was like driving back into the 1930s. It was all of that again. It was bad. But what you would see there is you would have kids. Let me just tell you something. With a kid, it doesn't matter what skin color you are. If you can throw a ball, or you can kick a ball, or you can ride a bike, or you can run around and play tag, you're my buddy and we're friends. Let's go after it. Right? That's just how it is. And we saw that there. But what we also saw was parents on both sides of the spectrum speaking into these kids. Hey, that's just how they are. You ever heard that before? Or you shouldn't hang out with that group of people. Or those people. You see what I'm saying? And it's those negative connotations that those adults spoke into the lives of those kids. And what happened is that in a moment, when something gets spoken into your life, it starts to take root in your heart. That's why we want to be a life-giving church. We want to speak life into you so that when you leave here, you can speak life into other people. Because what gets spoken into your life takes root and starts to grow. And what you would see there is some students and some kids who in 6th grade, they didn't have a problem with each other. But in 9th grade, they hated each other's guts just because of their skin color. And it all started because of what was handed down from one person to another person to another person. So at the core, here it is right here, at the core, hate at its core starts in your heart. And that's what we're going to talk about really quick. You ready? Here's the first one. Proverbs 4:23. We're going to jump around a little bit here. Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your what? Guard your heart. For everything you do flows from it. Everything you do. Everything you do flows from your heart. And when your heart, look at the verse. Just look at it. When your heart is stored up with hate, everything you do flows from a heart stored up with hate. And I'm sure you've heard this before, right? You've heard this saying before. How many of you have heard hurt people hurt people? How many of you have ever heard that before? A couple of you? No, today? It's first time. Thank you. You're welcome. Right there. Hurt people, hurt people, hurt people. And you know why? Hurt people because what doesn't get healed in you gets passed down. What doesn't get healed in you gets passed down to the person who's coming after you, gets passed down to the person who's checking you out at Walmart. What doesn't get healed in you gets passed down to somebody else. So what happens in your heart, everything else you do flows from it. Look at Luke chapter 6, verse 45. It says, a good man brings good things out of the what? Good that's stored up. Don't just read that and say, oh, okay, well, it's just stored up. No, you got to take that verse and go, okay, a good man does good things from the good stored up in his heart. And an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. And check this out. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. And here's what I want you to realize this afternoon. See, from all you people who had placed a little wager, you see what I did there? This afternoon. This is what I want you to hear. You can only pass down what's been handed to you. Okay, you can only pass down what's been handed to you. So you may look back at your life and you can see that your dad or your granddad was one way and you don't really want to be like that, but you still have some beliefs of what they believe because it was passed down to you and you still have those things in you. But a part of you doesn't want your kids to grow up thinking that. Right? A part of you wants your kid to get along with everybody. Right? A part of you wants that. Well, here's the thing. Unless you store up some good in your heart, it's going to be hard to hand out good because there's no good stored up in your heart. So the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. The mouth speaks what the heart is full of. So you can only hand down to people what's been handed to you unless your heart is transformed by something greater. Because you see, at one point in every single one of our lives, no matter if it was racism or hate or whatever, it could be anything, something was embedded in our heart and it was called sin. And when we give that to Jesus, when we meet the greater, He can transform our heart to be perfect and pure and white. Come on, somebody. That's a big deal right there. When we look at that, no matter who we are, we can look at who we are. And if we are a Christ follower, we've given our life to Jesus, man, we can look at who He is, because His righteousness is now our righteousness. Right? So we look at that and we're like, man, that's awesome. But here's the deal. It all starts with the heart. It all starts with the heart, because here's the thing. If you've been through Next Steps, you've heard this a little bit, but I want to share this with you, because if you haven't been, you need to know it, right? You need to know it. And if you want to hear it again, Next Steps 2 is right after service tonight. Chicken, child care, that's a big deal to everybody. Come on. If you got kids, raise your hand. Okay? If you haven't went through Next Steps yet, if you want another 30 minutes without them, come to Next Steps. Eat some chicken. Right? That's where we're going to go. But here's what I want you to see. Your heart determines what you say, how you feel, and how you act. Your heart determines what you say, how you feel, and how you act. So to end this morning, this is what I want to share with you. I want to share with you the heart of Jesus. Right? So take the Confederate flag down, leave the Confederate flag up. I don't care. All I wanted you to know this morning is the heart of Jesus. Because if we'll get past all that other stuff and we'll just go, you know what would Jesus do here? What would Jesus do right here? I think that'll grow us. I think that will grow us tremendously. So I want to show you a heart of Jesus. Y'all ready? I want to show it to you from the book of Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 53, verse 5. But He was pierced for our transgressions, and He was crushed for our iniquities. And the punishment that brought us peace was upon Him, and by His wounds we are healed. That's the heart of Jesus right there. That's the heart. Because you know, the day that He went to the cross and the day that He died, the day that He stepped foot from heaven, knowing that one day He would walk and He would give His life for people who at that point didn't even know who He was, didn't even care to know who He was. But if you want to see somebody who has a pure heart, then this is what happened. He started the day off at the whipping post, right? And this is where the Roman soldiers had perfected the art of brutally beating people, right? And what they would have is it was called the cat of nine tails, right? So it was 9 leather straps connected to a wooden handle. And what they would do is at the end of those leather straps is they would tie in bone, and they would tie in rock and glass and wire, and they would tie it in there so when it hit somebody, it would just pull and yank. But what they would do to make it even worse is that before they would start that, is they would dip those leather straps in a bucket of water. And if any of you know about wet leather, you know that it's coming down pretty hefty. It's coming down pretty hard. So they would drop that in the bucket, and then they would start beating them. And it was Roman law that you couldn't get 40, right? It was just too brutal. Even to the Romans, it was too brutal. You could not get 40. Right? So they would give 39, right? To the people that could take it, they would give 39. And by the way, Jesus took all 39. Jesus took all 39. And I want you to know something. I'm all for church being uplifting and pumped up and exciting, and we talk about stuff. But when you talk about somebody's heart, it's a big deal, right? Because what's in your heart flows out of what you say, what you think, and what you do. Right? So when we talk about somebody's heart, that is a big deal. So when we look at the heart of Jesus, here's the heart of Jesus. 39 stripes, 13 right here across this shoulder muscle, the trapezius muscle, 13 across this, simply for the purpose of tearing the muscle in half so that it wouldn't have anything to hold your shoulder up for, and that was intentional. You'll hear about that in a second. So 13 across this shoulder muscle, and 13 more across this shoulder muscle. And then they would go right in the middle of his back, right next to his spine, and they would do 13 right down the middle of his back, exposing his spine. And that was all intentional as well. And then they would have taken flimsy rods, bendable rods, and they would have beaten him on the back sides of his legs, on his calves and on the back sides of his thighs. And let me tell you, dude, that's the most sensitive part of your body. I'm here to tell you right there. It is the most sensitive part of your body almost, and they would beat him in that. And then the next thing is they would take him to a place called the Praetorium, where really it was the locker room of the guards. So the guards could go in there and they could have their way with Jesus at the time. And the Bible sheds some light on this. And it says that they came in and they blindfolded him. They would punch him and they would kick him and they would mock him because of who he said he was. And if you're really that person, tell us which one of us hit you. Come on, can you see this? Can you see this going down? Which one of us hit you? Surely, if you are who you say you are, you'll know. And then to take it even a step further, to mock him even more, you're the king of the Jews is what you're calling yourself. Well, you need a crown, right? So they would weave together a crown of thorns, 4 inches long. And they would have shoved it on his head, and you would think that would cause massive amounts of bleeding, but it doesn't. It does just the opposite. Like all the blood runs to the center of your brain, giving you the migraine of all migraines right there. You see, he was punished. Not because of what he did, but because of what I did. Because of what you did. He was punished to give us peace. He was punished so that we wouldn't have to go through that. Right? And then they would have taken him outside and they would have given him his cross. And then he would have started the journey. Right? Up the mountain. Up Golgotha. All the way to the top. And when he got there, they would have laid him on top of that cross and they would have pierced his hands. You saw the movie. You read the Bible. You know where this is going. They would have pierced through his hand with big railroad spikes. But let me just be honest with you. From what they say, man, your body weight alone would have pulled those spikes right out of your hands. So what they did is they would go in and they would tie a rope around his wrist to the cross so it would hold him up. And then they would take his feet and they would pierce his feet, but they would do it in a way that had a little bend in his knees. Right? And that was all intentional. Because remember the beating on his traps, the muscle that holds your shoulder in place? Now that it's completely separated, you're on the cross and your shoulders are dislocating and they're coming out of socket. And every time that they would come out of socket, you would slump down. And every time you would slump down, your lungs would collapse and you couldn't breathe. You see, crucifixion it wasn't for like blood loss. It wasn't you dying for blood loss. Crucifixion, you died of suffocation. Like you suffocated because you had no air coming to your lungs, because your lungs would collapse, because your shoulders would pop out of socket. So the only way that somebody could get another breath is when that would happen, they would have to push up from the spike that was drilled into their feet, and they would go, and they would catch that, and they would fall back down, collapsing your lungs again, making it hard to breathe. So you would have to do that constantly. Remember the stripes down the middle of his back, which exposed his spine? Could you imagine the old song that says the old rugged cross? So it wasn't like a smooth piece of plywood. You know what I mean? Like it was rugged. And can you imagine for 6 hours him going and moving his back up along the side of that cross and dropping back down and moving this back? Can't you see his heart? Like, let me ask you this question. You can be honest. How many of you deserve that? I mean, you know you. I'm not saying you're a horrible person. I'm asking you the question. How many of you deserve that? Now, I didn't. I didn't deserve that. And in a moment, for 6 hours, I see the heart of Jesus toward me. Because what happened, the gospel, what you've just heard a little bit of, the gospel is nothing but a heart exchange to anybody who wants to exchange hearts. You see, Jesus on the cross was like this. When he came off of the cross, he was like, the gospel is like this. You see what I'm saying? It's not, no, you're not like me, So you can't come in. No, you can't. If you can't act like us, you can't come in. If you can't do this, you can't come in. The gospel's like this. And Jesus hung on the cross showing you his heart and his acceptance of who you are and said, I'll exchange hearts with you any day. If you'll bring me your sin, I'll give you my righteousness. If you'll bring me your hurt and your pain, I'll give you healing and I'll give you comfort. And if you'll give me your regrets, listen, I'll give you a hope and a future. The gospel is nothing more than a heart exchange. And Jesus on the cross said, I'm willing to exchange my heart for yours if you're willing to. And just to make sure that he was dead on the cross, what those guards would have done, they would have taken a spear and they would have ran it up inside his rib cage, and they would have ran it all the way in to puncture his heart to make sure that he was dead. And the Bible says when they did that, blood and water flowed from his body. And doing research and stuff on that, man, you ask some doctors, and they'll tell you the only way that that's possible is if his heart had ruptured in his chest. You see, here's what I want you to know tonight. Jesus, he didn't die from the cross. He didn't die from the beating. He didn't die from the blood loss. He didn't die from the crown of thorns implanted into his skull. He didn't die from that. He died from a broken heart for me and for you. Isn't that good news? He died on the cross for a broken heart, for me and for you. To say, listen, on the cross, Jesus took every single one of our sins on the cross, on his body, and he paid the price so that we wouldn't have to. So in a moment, Jesus says, I'll do this so that I can exchange my heart and give it to you, and your heart will become my heart. And you can see your heart at the end of Jesus' life on the cross. It's broken. You want to know where racism and hate comes from? It comes from a broken heart. It comes from a broken heart. Because hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. But what I want you to know tonight, if you don't get anything else, this is what I want you to get right here. It's going to be up on the screen for you. This is what I want you to get. One heart. One heart. One heart. One heart. One heart can cause incredible pain or bring great healing. And we know that to be true, right? One heart can cause incredible pain or it can bring great healing. It can cause incredible pain. One dude who'd stored up hate in his heart walked into a church and he took the lives of 9 people. He took the lives of 9 people because of the hate that was stored up in his heart. So one heart can bring incredible pain, but one heart can also bring what? Come on, you got to help me. One heart can also bring great healing. You see, no matter what pain we go through here, Jesus had already healed it on the cross.